Shalom. So Ben said he's going to need a few minutes, and rather than doing a, rather than just um, doing a countdown, another countdown, which I could do. Yes, it's Tanya time. I thought I might just do a little explanation of why and what we are doing with the Tanya stuff for anybody who hasn't necessarily watched since the beginning. Tanya is one of the founding works of um, the entire Hasidic movement in general, but the Chabad Hasidic movement in particular. So Hasidism is what I would call a revivalist movement. Obviously, those of us who believe in Hasidism do not believe that it was innovative in a real sense. We believe that it was a movement which re-emphasized and revitalized Judaism about 300 years ago. It started with Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov. We demand Ben. Yes, we do. And Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov was a real person who lived in the area of Poland near the town of Medjugorje. And let me actually look up the exact dates. And he was, so there used to be a lot of people who were, is this a new picture of the Baal Shem Tov? Now I'm seeing a new picture of the Baal Shem Tov. The one that's best known is obviously not the Baal Shem Tov. So he was born around 1698 and he died 1760. And he was, so there have been itinerant mystics in Jewish history referred to as Baalei Shem, those who know names. And Elijah says, I'm a Baal Shem Tov mythicist. Yeah, that's pretty hard to do considering there are census records and like literal writings of his. There's actually a census record from the Polish census of the Baal Shem Tov. So he clearly existed. Anyway, he was known as the good Baal Shem, and that's where Baal Shem Tov comes from. Not all the Baalei Shem were necessarily good people. Obviously, we like our mystics to be good people. But the Baal Shem Tov, his greatest, he was quite popular among the people of his area, not necessarily with the rabbis. Some random question, is there a connection from the Tzfat circle mystics to the Baal Shem Tov? Only in that the Baal Shem Tov quite clearly, and later Hasidic works, quite clearly integrated the published works of Rabbi Chaim Vital and other students of the Arizal. And in fact, popularized those works in ways, while, basically all the rabbis were, there are, with very few exceptions, all rabbis over the past 500 years have accepted the teachings of the Arizal as authoritative. They were not taught in public. Hasidism taught a version of what the taught Torah that was based upon the teachings of the Arizal, and would say is not actually violating in any way the fact that Chokhmat Nistar, that the actual Kabbalah, is only supposed to be taught to people who are worthy of such. And so, I mean, I am not worthy. I am definitely not worthy. I am obviously not worthy to actually study Kabbalah. I have studied a lot of Hasidic works, and that's why many people mistake me as a student of the Kabbalah. But me, myself, having very little knowledge of Talmud, I would very much say that there is a too long to didn't read. Jacob is just a guy. So in order to understand Talmud, you must first thoroughly have a grounding in Tanakh, certainly the Torah, but really in Nach as well. And and in order to study Kabbalah and to have any real understanding of it, you must have, you are supposed to have a solid grounding in the Talmud. Unfortunately, that is not true of many people who claim to be Kabbalistic students of the Kabbalah. But Jacob might be unworthy to study Kabbalah, but do all the unworthy stay themselves from studying Kabbalah? No, they most certainly do not. Not sure if Ben is ready yet. He is in the studio, but his camera is not on. Is it useful? There he is. Is it useful to define that against, juxtapose to the mitnagdim, the Litvaks? It certainly would help to understand. I mean, so there was great opposition to the Hasidic movement, especially in its early manifestations. There is still, to some extent, some opposition within the Jewish community, although pretty much everyone's decided they have bigger heretics to fry than the Hasidim. There does tend to be some still thing. How are you doing, Ben?
I'm doing pretty good. I apologize.
I will never forget it.
Forgot about the time change, even though I suggested it.
This time supposedly works a lot better for me.
Great.
But yeah. Hello, Don. Is there some sort of Judaism for Dummies list of the great books of Judaism and what order to read them in? I actually highly recommend, especially for Christians, to start with this wonderful series that two great scholars named Ben and Chezi did on Pirkei Avot, the sayings of the fathers, which is a really great introduction to Jewish ethics and Jewish philosophy, hashkafa. Other than that, I would say there are. You might want to look at "This Is My God" by Herman Wouk, or look at is it "To Live as a Jew" by Donin?
I think so.
Joseph Telushkin has a lot of great books on Orthodox Judaism. But you have to understand, like, I only call Orthodox Judaism Judaism. I don't believe Reform and Conservative qualify as expressions of Judaism. And 90% of Jews would very much disagree with me about that.
I don't know if 90%.
Well,
kind of like, I mean, we spoke about this as even people that would go to Reform would not recognize the theology as necessarily
correct. Yeah.
what they grew up with or what they were around.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the weird thing about people who go to Reform and Conservative synagogues. And I mean, Reform and Conservative rabbis complain about this all the time. Despite thinking of themselves as Reform and Conservative Jews, they also think real Judaism is Orthodox Judaism, and they're right.
What about halachic Judaism?
Halachic Judaism? I mean, how do you distinguish between Orthodox Judaism and halachic Judaism?
Well, I don't. I mean, but it might be just a better.
Refer to it as halachic Judaism? Yeah, you could, I guess. Yeah, don't know what to tell you.
How are you doing?
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem. Yeah. We are on Epistle 12, I believe.
So let's do it. Do you want to go for it?
Sure. V'haya ma'aseh hatzedakah shalom va'avodat hatzedakah hashket v'vetach ad olam. So this is a verse in Isaiah. And the reward for the act of tzedakah will be peace, and the reward for the service of tzedakah will be quietness and surety forever. So he's going to explain in the Hebrew. It's quite clear that here it's making a distinction between ma'aseh hatzedakah and avodat hatzedakah, and these are two words that are in what is referred to as construct form. So one of the reasons in the Bible you'll notice there's a lot of X of Y, right? Like, for example, Son of Man, is that Hebrew has a special grammatical form called the construct form, which or smichut in Hebrew, which is when you have two or more terms, and those two terms and that combination of terms is supposed to explain a new concept or a different concept that the words by themselves do not necessarily point to. So when we talk here, ma'aseh hatzedakah and avodat hatzedakah are in smichut, so act of tzedakah and service of tzedakah. So he's going to explain what exactly it means, ma'aseh hatzedakah and avodat hatzedakah. Lahavin hahefresh shebein ma'aseh la'avodah uvein shalom lehashket vavetach. So he's going to explain the difference between the act and the service of tzedakah and the rewards No, construct form is not a case. It is it's something that doesn't exist in other languages. It's something that just does not exist in other languages. So you can't compare it to Greek or English or anything like that. We don't have anything like that. The closest thing you would have in English would be a hyphenated word. That's the closest thing you could have. Like, let's say you say man pig, right? What's a man pig, right? It's something different. That's not a man. That's not a pig, but it's it's the two of them, right? Okay, and the rewards, which are shalom or peace, and hashket vavetach, right? Quietness. Sheket literally is quietness, and vetach, um, bitachon. So in modern Hebrew, social security is referred to as bitachon leumi, or insurance
Yeah.
is called bitachon, right? So surety, right? Al pi ma she'amru rabotenu zichronam levracha al pasuk oseh shalom bimromav. So he's going to explain this by explaining what the rabbis explained on a different pasuk. This is from Job 25:2. Oseh shalom bimromav. He makes peace in his high places. So what does that mean? That God would make peace in his high places. Ki Michael sar shel mayim v'Gavriel sar shel esh ve'ein mekaben ze et ze. So this comes from the Midrash Rabbah and Midrash Tanchuma, which says that what does it mean God makes peace in the heavens or in his high places? Means they're explaining Michael, right? The angel Michael, Archangel Michael, and the Archangel Gabriel, right? Michael is whatever that means. He is the prince of water, and Gabriel is the prince of fire, and they don't extinguish each other, meaning that there is a shalom, there's a unity and wholeness, which of opposites, which does not consist in nullification, but rather unification. Koma. That is to say, not that Michael's substance derives from the spiritual element of water and that Gabriel's substance derives from the spiritual water, but that Shemichael sar shel chesed. So he's explaining what does it mean, water and fire, right? So spiritually, water is what we compare to chesed, right? Especially in that it falls down, right? And so we have all of this imagery of water, right? And the opposite is fire, right? Which would be gevura, which would be justice or severity or rigor, right? Hanikra b'shem mayim. So chesed is referred to as mayim. Hayordim mimakom gavoa lamakom namuch, because it is that which comes from a high place and comes down to a low place, just as chesed or kindness comes from above. והוא בחינת ההשפעה והתפשטות החיות מעולמות עליונים לתחתונים. And the most essential spiritual fact of chesed is that God provides life force, chiyut, right, from the spiritual heights above all the way down to the lowest worlds.
Right. Yeah, we were talking about kindness and how charity, tzedakah, especially or specifically taps into the kindness which is closer to the source and brings it down. Yeah.
Yep. ובחינת אש, so fire in contradistinction, שטבעה לעולת למעלה. So fire takes what is below and burns it up and brings it up above.
Mm-hmm.
היא בחינת הגבורה והסתלקות השפעת החיים ממטה למעלה. It is that which consists of taking from below and bringing it up above and raising it, elevating it, right? שלא להשפיע, right? That it's not in order to bring down, רק בצמצום עצום ורב, in order not to bestow it except by way of an intense and immense contraction. As opposed to chesed, which flows, right? This is a constriction, a constricting manner of bringing spirituality into this world.
So I'm thinking about something. Maybe you can clarify it for me. So Aaron is
Hod.
What?
Hod.
Hod?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. That's different. We can go into that as well. But Aaron is, well, he's be like the student, be a student of Aaron, right? And be
Ohev Shalom.
Ohev Shalom. So I associate others associate him with Chesed, right? And in some way, he takes the supplications, he takes the sacrifices from people and brings them on high, right? From below to up, bottom up. And Moses brings the Torah down here. So two questions is, could we say that Moses is acting in a constricting way? So he's in that manner, he's more associated with Gvura. And the second thing, that seems to be the opposite of what is happening here, because we're saying the Chesed comes from above and Gvura comes from below.
Right. So you're getting into something very interesting, and part of it, Netzach v'Hod train Shokin. So Netzach and Hod are the two legs, right? So when we look at a Partsuf, right, you have Netzach and you have Hod, and so Netzach is embodied most in Moses, and Hod is embodied most in his brother Aaron, right?
Okay.
And so Netzach is victory, usually translated as victory or eternity, and as you can see, it derives from Chesed. And similarly, Hod is derives from Gevurah, right?
Okay.
Now, the fact is, Netzach and Hod, you're pointing to the fact that they sometimes actually seem to be doing the opposite of what they essentially are. Yeah. So we would sometimes refer to as the outer aspects and the inner aspects, bechitzoniut ubepinimiut, right? So Moses, right? There are ways in which we see him as being a manifestation of Chesed, which bepnimiut he is, right? In essence, in his greatest essence, he is a manifestation um, of chesed, but at the same time, nitzachon, right, is victory, right, is fighting, and there's the war where Moses, the two people are holding his hands up, right, and as long as his hands are up, he Israel is winning the war, right?
I guess yeah.
Yeah, and in a very and so there's also the aspect of um, when God is talking to Moses, Moses says, "I am kaved peh," right? He stutters, and God says, "Your brother Aaron shall be a king, shall be like a priest to you, and you will be like a god to Pharaoh," right? And so the interaction between Netzach and Hod is actually quite intricate, and sometimes you get this of, oh, well, how is it that the Kohen, right, even though really, what is the job of a Kohen? The job of a Kohen is, what's the essential job a Kohen does in the temple? He slaughters animals, right? He slaughters animals. How you can get to be more gavuradik than killing, right?
Right.
And that's gavura. That's essentially gavura. Yet the job of a kohen is also to bring reconciliation, bring peace, to affect atonement, right? Kapara, right? So the fact is that as Hod manifests in the world, it will manifest the chitzoniut as being an aspect of chesed. The pnimiut, in its essential self, it will manifest as being gavura, and Netzach will do the opposite, right? And it's actually part of this thing of being the two legs, right? It is part of their essential nature of one foot forward, then the other foot forward, right? And yeah, it's difficult, and it's one of the reasons why oftentimes a lot of things don't actually talk about Netzach and Hod. Like they may be two of the Sfirot that people talk about the least. Partially because you almost have to talk about them together, and you have to in fact explain that Netzach and Hod are in a very real sense twins, which manifest differently and have different essential characteristics.
Right. It's interesting. So if I look at this again, if I bring this tree again, I mean, yeah, the simple insight here is that, and I never thought about this, that if I just thought about it, it would have been much more. It would have been much more logical if Netzach came out of Gvura, descended from Gvura, and Hod descended from Chesed. Just if I just think about the term.
The term Netzach and Hod, quite possibly, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So even that kind of speaks a little bit to what you said about the pnimiyut, the chitzoniyut, the externality, and versus the essence, or
yeah.
I don't know So that's a lot to chew on.
Yeah. So the thing with the right side is it brings down, right? And the left side it lifts up.
So you're saying hod?
Hod, ultimately, what does a kohen do? He brings things. He's
Like
makri.
burns fire,
Yeah, he
right?
brings things to the altar,
Right,
right?
incense. Yeah.
Right. He brings things to the altar and burns them up,
Yep.
right? And like Netzach, a rabbi, Moshe Rabbeinu, right? What does a rabbi do? He explains things, right?
Mm-hmm.
He brings things from above down below. But then you see in the Bible, like there's that tension. It's like, so if that's the job of Moses, why is Moses the guy who's killing the Egyptian,
Mm-hmm.
right? Why is Moses the one who's killing the Egyptian? Why is Moses the one who can't speak, right?
How's
And
that? What does can't speak? How does that relate?
because his job is to bring down, right?
Mm-hmm. To articulate.
To articulate, yeah, right. But we see that very real contradiction, but that's part of Netzach and Hod being twins and being compared to the two legs or the two hips, right? Which move together.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, your hands, they don't ever just automatically fall into a pattern. Your legs do, right? When
Mm-hmm.
you're running,
Walking, yeah.
yeah, when you're walking, your legs, they automatically, right? One step, two step, one step, two step, right? And
Yeah.
that's actually the reason why four-legged creatures like cats and dogs, right? Their legs, their hands and legs are coordinated, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll walk coordinated, whereas our hands are separate, right?
Yeah.
Whereas our legs are not.
Yeah. If you ever tried drumming, it's possible because you have to coordinate between your legs and your hands. Like you need to do a certain rhythm with your legs and a certain feet, and a certain rhythm and a different rhythm with your hands,
Okay.
which is very hard.
I wonder if people. I mean, I know when playing. Oftentimes, when playing instruments, there's right. I mean, there's, yeah. Right hand does one thing, the left hand does another. Is
Oh yeah.
very normal.
Mm-hmm.
But we usually only use one foot for pedals. We don't
Mm-hmm.
usually do 2 foot. Although I know organ players use both feet. Do drummers use both feet, or they use one foot?
Try to remember um, what I've experienced in a very basic level. It could be. It could be. It could
John
be.
God says both feet.
Okay. He seems confident. So he put a dot at the end of it. So
I don't know.
yeah, because one is for I don't know the terms, but one definitely your right foot I think goes into like the big drum, the bass I guess.
Well, Jan God is claiming he has a girlfriend, which is impossible.
Since he's on YouTube right now.
Yeah, this, like, so. Um, I mean, his girlfriend probably lives in a different country. That's why you've never met her.
No, Young God is cool. And he knows about drumming already, so that's
Okay,
and he uses periods at the end of sentences. So for me, it's like he's doing
that
something.
is, yeah, that is
Thank you,
that
Young.
is something. Yeah, that may be like the, no, clown used a period. Yeah, clown used the period a while back. Yeah, people do sometimes use period. Anyway, we went way off. But yeah,
Okay. Yeah, no, but this was interesting.
Mark says so. Mark is actually cool. He knows. So apparently, drummers use both feet. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. There we go. Anything else before we go back to actually looking at the epistle? Okay.
My turn.
והן מידות נגדיות והופכיות זו לזו. Right? And these two attributes, chesed and gevura, are opposed and contrary, or hafuch means opposite, right? והיינו כשהן בבחינת מידות לבדן. But that is when we are talking about them individually, right? So, like it says very clearly in Petichat Eliyahu, which is the part of the Tikkunei Zohar, which people know the most because it's used in many liturgies. It says, Kol da'afrish chad mechavrei ke'ilu chas v'shalom afrish bach. Right? Anyone who, God forbid, causes one of the sfirot to be separated from the other, it's as if, God forbid, he has caused a separation within God himself. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu oseh shalom beinehem. But God himself, he creates a peace, he creates shalom between these two opposite things. Hainu al gedei gilui שמתגלה בהן הארה רבה והשפעה עצומה מאוד מאור אין סוף ברוך הוא. Right? Since God puts, God's light shines, infinite light shines upon them. Asher kishmo ken hu, right? And regarding the Ein Sof, like the name describes what it is, right? It is infinite. She'eino b'bechinat midah chas v'shalom, right? It's not something that can be measured. There's not something that is finite, God forbid. Eila lama ad ein ketz, but he's actually infinitely greater, right? Afilu mebechinat chokhmah bina b'da'at, mikor hamidot, even from the intellectual aspects of chokhmah bina and da'at, or chabad, right? Which are the three sfirot which did not even crack during the shattering of the vessels. ואזי המידות נגדיות של מיכאל וגבריאל נכללות במקורן ושורשן. Right? So because God is so infinite and he is that which illuminates these two opposing attributes, so they are able to be it says absorbed, but really I would say included in their source and root, right? One in the other. V'hayu la'achadim mamash, and they are truly unified. Uvetelim ba'oro yitbarach ha'meir lahem bebechinat gelui, right? And they are nullified to that light which radiates to them in a manifest way. Va'azai mitmazgim umitmaktikim hagavurot b'chasadim. So that's how you get the mixture, and they're translating it as mellowing or sweetening of the gavurot with chasadim. And this is a basic thing, right? That in a lot of in a lot of our symbolism, right? Including, for example, when you make kiddush, putting a few drops of water into it, right? Limzog, right? Kos kiddush. Why is it? It's mamtakat hachasadim, hagavurot, right? It's to cause a little sweetening of the bitterness of the wine.
Yeah, isn't I was surprised that I saw. I don't know if this. I don't know if it relates this verse. I don't know if it's from this verse, but when it says, or in the liturgy, when it says "Ma'ariv aravim," ma'ariv is sweetening, sweetens.
You could translate it that. I had an uncle. I mean, this is a secular joke, but Ma'ariv Aravim. You could also say he confuses the Arabs, right? So literally, Ma'ariv Aravim is that he is the one who causes the twilight to mix, like light and day to mix.
Right.
So we say Shema in the morning and in the evening, right? And there are the brachot, right? In the morning we thank God for the coming of the dawn, and in the evening we thank God for the coming of the dusk. And one of the blessings, right, Ma'ariv Aravim, in a very real sense is and I mean there's also the moon and the stars, right, at night, right? And yeah, I mean there is and simply the fact that Arev, like you were talking about, something that is desirable, right, is something that is mixed. And obviously, I mean, when we talk about tiferet, right, beauty, tiferet is about mixing of chesed and gevura.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I was just I was curious about that because I wouldn't have been able to tell from the word itself. I didn't know about that interpretation.
Yeah, and he says it. He midat harachamim, right? So we talk about like Joe was a little bit joking. Jacob knows all about being sweet, but Jacob, the patriarch, right? Because he is a combination of chesed and gevura, he that is tiferet or beauty, also known as rachamim, right? Known as mercy. Hanikrat b'shem tiferet b'divrei chachmei ha'emet, right? This is called tiferet or beauty, right? So back to and right. So you have tiferet, which is a combination, right?
Right in the middle.
Yeah, right in the middle. Okay. Lefi shehi kelula mishnei gavanim, right? Because it is that which combines two things. Loven ve'odem. And if you didn't hear what Yoav said about colors on Friday on the live stream with PBK, it's just absolutely beautiful. You didn't?
I'll check it out.
I will try to repeat it as best as I can. So it was absolutely beautiful. If he came up with it himself, he's a greater Torah scholar than I even imagined. But I'm impressed that he may have even heard this from someone. Anyway, so he's apparently a color engineer, right?
Okay.
And so he said color has three aspects. You have white, you have black, and then you have red. Okay? So apparently all color is kind of this aspect of white, black, and red.
Mm-hmm.
And he said in all cultures, you have this. Um, that needs to be clipped. It does. Well, somebody clip it. Why? Like, okay, it needs to be clipped. Somebody go do it. Um, um, so white. So in all cultures, you have white be goodness and light, right?
Mm-hmm.
And black is death, right? But this word, but red in Hebrew, Adom, right, is Adam,
Mm-hmm.
right, is man. It's also
Right.
Adama. It's the earth, right?
So
Uh,
blood.
yeah, and dam, right? It's right, and so there is man in a sense stands. He's not black and white. He's red, right? He's this something else, right? Which I mean, really, I would say is life, right? Is this coming together of heaven and earth, right? And he also pointed out then that we have the paraduma,
Yeah.
right? And what is the paraduma? This is uh, the Chachamim say Zot Chok HaTorah. This is the most difficult thing to understand in the Torah.
Mm-hmm.
Why? The paraduma, you take the red heifer, you burn it up, and you mix it with water. So you burn it up, you mix it with water,
Ashes. Yeah.
and you sprinkle the ashes, right? And the person who is pure becomes impure, and the person who is impure becomes pure.
Right. The person that sprinkles it becomes impure.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's like and I believe it's the Talmud which says like why should it be, right? What is this thing? And so yeah, and he said if you if you understand this thing of humanity like not being black and white, that might help you or also understand para aduma.
So
Like
the
yeah,
there's something with the red that's being it's the thing that mixes the intermediary.
in a sense, I mean it's a different dimension.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it really is a different dimension, and frankly, I mean, if you've ever tried to use, the color pickers on something like on a computer, right?
Yep.
When you're trying to pick a color, right? There's a different dimension. There's the color scheme,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you have to pick how dark or light it is.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why for color printing, it's CIMAC, right? It's cyan, yellow, magenta, and black, right? Oh, but you could also do RGB, red, green, and blue, right? Which is 3-color printing.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, obviously he's a color engineer, so he understands this stuff far, far better than I do.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like when he brought this out, it was like, oh my God. Like we talk about black and white and grays so much, but partially also it's because men and women see color so differently, right? Women see a lot more colors than men do, and many, many men are colorblind. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So
interesting.
yeah. So this reminded me of that. It says Loven ve'odem,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because Lavan is the color of Chesed, and um, Odem is the color of Chesed, of Gavura, right? Yeah. המרמזים לחסד וגבורה. Yeah, and Rachamim, right, is therefore called Tiferet because there's beauty in the harmony of diverse colors, right? V'lachen stam shem havaya baruch hu shebachol haTorah more al midat hatiferet. I didn't know this, but apparently, when we are just talking about the Shem Havaya, the tetragram or tetragrammaton in the Torah by itself, it is referring to Tiferet. Kamo shekatuv b'Zohar Kadosh, like it says in the Zohar. I didn't know that, but okay. Lafi shekan hu bechinat gilui or ein sof baruch hu ha'ara rabah, right? Because in beauty, in Tiferet, right, the infinite ein sof light becomes manifest in an immense illumination. Beyeter set misha'ar midotav hakadoshot yitbarach, right? In a way that surpasses the other way manner, right? It's more central. Let's say. It aruta de la'ela la'orer gilui ha'ara rabba v'hashpa'a atzuma hanizkeret la'ayel ma'or ein sof baruch hu la'asot shalom hanizkar la'ayel he be'it aruta de latata. So now he's going to talk about how, in order to have an arousal from above, it has to be awakened from below. And to bring the light to have that, you have to have an arousal from below. B'ma'aseh hatzdaka. This is done through the act of actually giving tzedakah, right? You give tzedakah. You are actually doing that charitable act. That is an arousal from below, which awakens an arousal from above.
So, I mean, you might be going into this, but so we're talking about gvura and chesed. We're talking about water from above
Water
and
fire.
fire from below. So tzedakah is, and we're saying that tzedakah is the awakening from below that engenders awakening from above. So how is tzedakah? So is tzedakah an act of gvura in some way?
Well, no, tzedakah isn't it? No. He's saying, I see what you mean.
Right, because it's fire from below coming up.
No, but it's not coming up. It's arousing. It is creating an arousal from above.
Right, it's like I'm
elevating. You're not elevating, right? So, for example, when you eat, right, when you sit down to a meal and you eat bekosher v'kedusha, right? Like at a meal, right? You are elevating that which you are eating, right?
Yeah.
When you give tzedakah, like you take money and you give it to somebody else, you're not elevating that money. You are in fact taking it from yourself and you're giving it to someone who, in a sense, is less deserving. But I mean, you could see it more as a way of you're creating a vacuum, right, which draws down from above. Yeah.
That I understand. Okay, so where's gvura here?
We're just talking about chesed right now. But he's saying, so he explained, right? Oseh shalom b'mromav,
Mm-hmm.
How are these two things able to live together?
Yeah.
It's through the illumination of the infinite light.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do an act of kindness, you're mamshich, or you bring light into the partsuf, which causes shalom bimramav, which causes shalom between chesed and gevura.
Yeah.
Get it?
I get it. Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious about the gvura. I understand that we're specifically on chesed. So
We're specifically, so he's going back to the verse, right?
Mm-hmm.
The verse at the very beginning said the reward of ma'aseh tzedakah, right?
Yeah.
So he's explaining the difference between ma'aseh tzedakah and avodat tzedakah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ma'aseh tzedakah is when you do the work, actual act of kindness. That's chesed, and that has a reward of shalom. Why? Because it's mamshich, or from above, which is what allows chesed and gevura to be in shalom.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay.
Then I'm guessing he's going to be talking about avodah, right? Avodah. What is avodah? Avodah is service, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the opposite. That's gevura. So avodat tzedakah. So ma'aseh tzedakah is chesed. Avodat tzedakah is gevura, and he's going to explain probably. We'll see how that is, but. Okay, so we're back to ma'aseh tzedakah, right? V'hashpa'at chayim chen v'chesed v'rahamim laman deleit lemigarmei klum.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're bringing life and graciousness and kindness and all types of good things to somebody who doesn't actually deserve it from themselves. Right? Ulachayot ruach shefalim, right? To revive those who are lowly, those who are downcast. And this is a very long note. Umudat zot ma shamru rabbeinu. So now he's gonna, I think, move on from to thing, but we'll see. Umudat zot ma shamru rabbeinu zechranam v'loracha al haosek b'torah lishma. So, what did the sages say about somebody who studies Torah for its own sake? Mesim shalom b'pamalia shel mala u'b'pamalia shel mata. Someone who studies Torah for its own sake, he creates peace in the Pamalia Shalmala, right? Heavenly retinue, right? The hosts above, and the Pamalia Shalmata, and the hosts below.
Where's this?
This would be from Sanhedrin 99b. Pamalia Shalmala, right? And hosts, we mean like armies, right? Pamalia Shalmala, Ham Hasarim V'Amidot Hanizkarot La'ayil, right? So when we talk about the heavenly retinue, right, we're talking about these princes and attributes above. Shehen ha'hechalot elyonim ba'olam habriya shebazohar hakadosh, right? These are the supernal chambers, hechalot, in Bria, according to the Zohar. And Bria is it's the second of the four worlds, but it's the highest of the worlds of creation, right? Because above Bria there's a break, and then there's Atzilut, the worlds of emanation, which are before creation. Ufamalia shalmata hen ha'echalot ha'tachtonim ubifrat olam hazeh hashafel ha'ma'orav tov v'ra mechet adam harishon, right? And the lower hechalot, right? The lower hosts. These are the lower hechalot. I'm guessing he means Asiyah, but he might mean Yetzirah. Specifically, this, or it sounds like he might be saying both Yetzirah and, but specifically in Asiyah.
Right, because it's plural, echalot, right?
Yeah, well, hechalot is definitely, but well, we're talking about olamot. So he talked about the hechalot of Bria, and then he's talking about hechalot hatachtonim. Not sure whether he means, but ubifrat olam hazeh hashafal. I think he's talking about Asiyah, right? Hama'orav tov v'ra mechet adam harishon. Right, that there is that good and evil have been mingled from the sin of Adam. V'hara sholet al hatov, and evil rules over the good. Kamo shekatuv asher shalat ha'adam ba'adam, as it is written, while man rules over man. Ecclesiastes 8:9. I.e., the man of wickedness, representing the forces of Klippa, rules over the man of holiness and harms him too, as the verse concludes. Ula'um mila'um ya'amatz. Right? It is also written, and nation will overpower nation, as the balance of power fluctuates between the forces of good and the forces of evil. וכנראה בחוש באדם התחתון נקרא בשם עולם קטן. And you can see this also in individual human beings, right, which are called olam katan, microcosm or little world, right, that we see within man. There's a mixture of good and evil. שלפעמים הטוב גובר ולפעמים להפך חס ושלום, that sometimes good is prevails, and sometimes God have mercy, the opposite. Ve'ein shalom ba'olam ad et ketz, and there will not be true peace in the world until the ketz, the ultimate time, the end comes. Sheyitbarer hatov mehara, that there shall be a refinement and clarification of the good away from the evil. Lidabek b'shorsho b'mukoro u'mukoro mekor hachayim baruch hu, right? That the good will be able to cling to its source and root in God Himself, right? Va'azai yitpardu kol po'alei aven, right? At that time, all evildoers shall be scattered. Psalm 92:10. V'ruach hatum'ah ya'avor min ha'aretz, and the spirit of impurity will be taken away from the entirety of the land. כשיתברר מתוכו בחינת הטוב המחייהו, since that those aspects of good which make it possible for evil to exist, because without there being an aspect, something good within anything, it would not be able to exist at all. וברור זה יהיה גם כן על ידי גילוי אלוקותו למטה. Right? And this refinement, right, will also take place through a manifestation of divinity below. There will be a revelation of the divine aspect below. Behara rabba v'hashpa'a atzuma, with great illumination and immense effulgence. Kamo shekatuv ki malah haaretz da'a et Hashem. Like it says that the entirety of the land shall be filled with the knowledge of God. V'nigla kavod Hashem, and the glory of God will be revealed. V'zehu b'chlalut ha'olam la'atid. Now this is generally speaking about what will happen in the world to come. Ach ba'adam hatachton, bechol et metzo, right? But when we're talking about now and terrestrial man, at every time of finding, every propitious time for finding God, zo tefillah, right? O sha'ar itim mezumanim lehitboded im kono, or those times when a person has a capacity to be, in essence, alone, right, with his maker. Kol achad lefi ma'asav, each person according to his deeds. Zochel me'ain barur zeh, he has a foretaste of this refinement. Al yedei esek haTorah lishma, through the study of Torah for the sake of the Torah itself.
So you can have this dot, this knowledge of God through these specific acts, like that,
as a reward. So knowledge of God is a reward for this specific act of studying Torah for its own sake. Through that, a person has a chance for the light to be the light of God to shine upon him. V'chen al yedei tzedakah, and similarly through tzedakah. Kamo she'amru Rabbi Elazar yahiv pruta la'ani v'hadar matzle, like it says that Rabbi Elazar would give a coin to a poor man and then he would pray. Dichtiv ani b'tzedek achzeh panecha, right? Like the verse that says, through tzedek, and this is what we explained last week, right? I will be able to see your face. He bechinat gilui ha'ara v'hashpa'at hada'at v'hatvuna, right? So this revelation during prayer is a manifest illumination and effusion of knowledge and understanding, right? So when you're praying and you have a capacity to be closer to God, right? This is a manifestation of da'at and tevuna. Lehitbonen begedulat Hashem, right? To meditate on the greatness of God. Uleholid mized chilur chimu sichliim, right? Which then causes a person to awaken in himself the love and fear of God, kenoda, as is known. And through doing this, right, the good is extracted for God and elevated to Him, and evil is separated away. Kamo shekatuv matzref lachkesef v'chur lazahav ve'ish lefi mahalalo. Like it says, the crucible is for refining silver, and the melting pot is for gold, right? These are two things in which metal is purified through heat, and man is refined according to his praise, or how he prays. Perish. Lefi hilulo et Hashem be'omek hada'at, right? Since he praises God fully in his mind, leholid dechilur chimu, to awaken love and awe of God, kacha nivrar hatov v'nifrad hara. In that manner, the good will be separated away and extracted, and the evil will be separated or cast off. Keverur pirud hasigim mikesef v'zahav b'matzref v'chor. Right? What?
This is a little bit reminds me of Mesilat Shirim. I know it might not be appropriate to say that, but
actually, I'm pretty sure Mesilat Yesharim is considered one of the influences on Tanya.
Yeah.
Or they at least were influenced by similar works.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, the separation, because in Mesilat Yesharim, especially the first two levels, or whatever you would want to call them, are Zeirut v'Zrizut. So watchfulness and uh, zealousness, not zealousness, quickness. It's another word for that. But anyway, so it's like it's watchfulness, meaning you want to separate yourself from the bad, and quickness, meaning you want to quickly move towards the good. And
Yeah, Sur Merava Setov. Like this is from the Bible.
yeah, okay. They all have the same source, magic.
Yeah.
But the pishpush and mishmush, he talks about pishpush mishmush. He talks about it like as a physical act of.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about birurim, right? This is the essence of the Lurianic Kabbalah is the idea of avodat habirurim.
Mhm.
So yes, this is It is not in any way surprising that the two of them. Now, the funny thing is, I've told you this story probably way too many times, but one time I was in my yeshiva, or Sameach, which is a Litvish, right, Misnagdish yeshiva, and my rabbi asked me, what are they teaching in that room? And I had only been there briefly, but it sounded like Tanya to me. And I said, oh, I think it's a Tanya shir. He's like, no, it's not a Tanya shir. And what it actually was Nefesh HaChaim shir.
Yeah.
And Nefesh HaChaim was written as a response to Tanya. So, I mean, and there's a whole cottage industry of trying to explain how Nefesh HaChaim and Tanya disagree, because while they very much disagreed with each other, nowadays we're not really at the level of understanding how they disagree, what they thought the disagreement was so was so vital about.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So all of that to say, yes, I'm sure the Ramchal was mentioning similar things. Yes. Okay.
Even though, so yeah, it's interesting. I'll just end that. I've never mentioned it, but it's interesting how Ramchal was kind of appropriated in a way into the Musar movement.
Yeah.
But I have a friend that is more from the Litvish world, and he mentions how in that world they would call him Lutzato. So they've appropriated him, but they don't necessarily call him the Ramchal or Rabbi Lutzato, or like they call him Lutzato is like a little bit like
Ayve.
So that's the story that I have.
How dare you?
But this is a book he reads. He reads this book every day. Like that's his Bible.
Like, don't. I mean, if you're not going to call somebody a rabbi, don't study his book.
Don't study his book religiously. Yeah, they study it. Yeah, completely appropriate. Completely meaning completely integrated, and like there's like
okay,
a
so like,
right?
Yeah, so like that. I don't even understand. I honestly don't understand how you could do that. Like lahavdil alaf avdalot. There are people who talk about the Jastro, right? I've told you about the Jastro.
Yeah.
Like that's already a thing. Like Jastro, God have mercy on his soul, was one of the founders of the conservative movement, and and frankly, I mean, you look at the introduction. I read that introduction, and afterwards. So I was one of the people who never used the Jastro. But it's a dictionary, right? So, okay, the Jastro, it's a dictionary, right?
Yeah.
But to say that about, like, you're studying Mesilat Yesharim, and to say, Lutzato, not Ramchal. Rutzata. It's like,
what can I say?
misnagdem, I tell you. Okay. כבירור ופירוט השיגים כסף וזהב במצרף בחור. Right? Just like dross, and for those of you who haven't been refined metals recently, dross is the junk that is when you mine metals, you heat them up very, very hot, and the dross is that stuff that burns away the impurities in whatever the metal is.
So here's sign 54 that you're Persian, is that you visited your Persian relative that works at 48th Street, and he took you to up the building to see how they.
Not that this actually happened. Actually, the only time
It happened to me, but
the
yeah.
only time I visited a mine was Pastor Tanner, who's a Reformed Baptist minister in Colorado. But he didn't actually show me his mine, but he runs a mine. And in his off time, he's a pastor. Really nice guy, actually.
Yeah.
For a Trinitarian, God have mercy on his soul. והנה מודעת זאת, שישראל בטבעם הם רחמנים וגומלי חסדים. Right? This is something that the Talmud says, that if someone is not Rahmanim, Baishanim, Bagomla Chasadim, he doesn't have these three qualities, but he's specifically talking about two of the three qualities, right? Compassionate and performing kindness. We wonder if they are, if they are actually Jewish, right? מפני היות נפשותיהם נמשכות ממידותיו יתברך, because their souls, this is talking about their lower souls, issue from God's attributes, אשר החסד גובר בהם על מידת הדין והגבורה והצמצום, right? In which chesed prevails over the attribute of din, gevura, and tzimtzum. וכמו שכתוב, גבר חסדו על יראיו. Like it says that his chesed, his kindness prevails, gover, right? Means to prevail, right?
It's interesting that gavar chesdo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Gavar chasdo, right? Gavar aleinu chasdo, right? To those who fear him, שלכן נקראת הנשמה בת כהן, כמו שכתוב בזוהר הקדוש. And similarly, we refer to the soul as the daughter of the priest, right? Since it derives from the attribute of chesed, which is called a kohen, which again goes back to the whole thing we talked about, right? Rodef Shalom, right? Why this kohen is in a very real sense both. And I think did we do a letter which discusses this or not?
Discusses Rodef Shalom.
Discusses Kohen being both Chesed and Gevura?
I don't recall.
Okay. I thought we did, but maybe we didn't. בזוהר הקדוש, והנה הצדקה הנמשכת מבחינה זו נקראת בשם מעשה הצדקה. Right? So all of this, this type of charity is all referred to as ma'aseh tzedakah, the work of tzedakah. Ki shem ma'aseh nofel al davar shekvar na'asa, or shena'aseh tamid mimela. Right? So when we talk about ma'aseh, right, it is something that has already been enacted, or it's something that is constantly done spontaneously. Vehi davar hahoveh veragil tamid, something that is existent, common, and constant. Va'afkan, here too, with regard to tzedakah, that is motivated by the soul's intense, innate sense of kindness and compassion. Harei midat hachesed v'rahmanut, hutba benafshut nafshot kol Beit Israel mikvar. Right? This is something that is ingrained in them, implanted in them from the very beginning. Me'et bri'utan vehishtalshutan mimidotav yitbarach. Right? Since their very creation and devolving from God's attributes. Kamosh katuv v'yipach ba'apav nishmat chayim. Right? That He breathed the nostril into their nostrils, the soul of life. Va'ata nafachta bi, right? That you blew within to me. Uman napach mitoche napach, right? He that breathed deeply. V'gam b'chol yom v'yom betuvo mechadesh ma'aseh bereshit. And in the fact that God is constantly creating the world, the chadashim lebakarim, right? They are new every morning. Ach lashon avoda eino nofel ela al davar shahadam oseh biyigia atzuma neged teva nafsho. So now we're going to talk about avodah. And service, that's not something that's automatic or already done or something it's something that you have to exert yourself, right? You have to make happen, right?
Right. Avodah is work. When we translate work, service.
Work, service, yeah. Rak shemavatel tiv'o rutzono mipnei ratzon ha'elyon baruch hu, right? That he overrules his own nature and will out of deference for God. Kagon leyagea atzmo b'torah u'b'tefillah ad mitzui hanefesh, right? To truly work at the Torah and prayer, right? To the extent of pressing out the soul. This is from Igeret HaKodesh, okay? Va'af kan b'mitzvat hatzedakah litan harbe yoter miteva rachmanuto uretzono, right? When someone does avodat hatzedakah, right? He goes beyond that which he naturally would do. Uchamo she'amru rabotenu zechronam v'racha al pasuk naton titen afilu mea pe'amim v'chulu, right? As our sages said, I don't know this quote. It's regarding Deuteronomy. It's from the Sifrei. That you shall surely give, right? It says even 100 times. Right? This then is the meaning of the verse, right? When it talks about the ma'aseh hatzdaka, shegam hatzdaka hanikret b'shem ma'aseh v'lo b'shem avodah, right? That even with the kind of charity which is called an act but not a service, even so, even though it's not something that it's something that comes naturally to him, it still elicits an arousal from above. Right? It brings forth an effusion of light from God Himself. Shalom b'mromav, which creates a peace in the supernal world. V'gam b'pamalia shalmata, which then creates a peace in the lower worlds as well. Rak sheba'olam hazeh hashafal lo yitkaleh hashalom ba'birur u'perud hara mehatov. Right? But this doesn't actually manifest itself in a revealed manner in this world. Ad et ketz, until when Mashiach comes in the world to come. The lo bizman hagalut kanizkar la'al, and not during the time of exile, as we explained above. רק בעולם קטן הוא האדם, בכל עת מצוא זו תפילה. Except that a person in the microcosm, right, can during tefillah have receive some bit of this birur, כמו שכתוב בצדק אחזה פניך, כנזכר Carlisle, right? Like the example of Rabbi Elazar, right, who gives a little tzedakah, and that helps him pray better.
Yeah.
אך אחר התפילה יוכל להיות הרע חוזר ונאור וקל להתערב בטוב, right? But it's after prayer we see that it's not something that stays with him, right? כאשר יתהלך בחשכת עולם הזה, right? When he goes out of to do the rest of his work, we see that it's not lasting. Tzedakah b'bichinat avodah, right? Something which is actually called called avodah, service. Hine ma'asher yakra v'gadla ma'alata ma'od ma'od. Since it is so great and precious, bihyot mevatel liftiv'o rutzono hagufani mipnei ratzon ha'elyon baruch hu. Right? Because in doing it, this person is actually overruling his normal nature to do that which God demands of him. Sitra afra, right? And he's causing the other side, as it were, to be subjugated, to be changed. V'azai istakel yakara dekuchabrichu. And in a manner that the glory of God rises up, right, goes up. Yitron haor min hachoshech davka kanoda, right? This is the superiority of light that comes out of darkness, right? Like has been explained in many other places. לזאת אין הרע יכול לחיות עוד חוזר ונאור בקלות כל כך מעליו, right? Since this is actually subjugating the evil and it's something that is more lasting than what happens during prayer. רק אם האדם יעוררנו וימשכנו על עצמו חס ושלום, and therefore a person has to actually turn towards evil, chas v'shalom, for it to come back.
Right. So he's saying that we have. So it's almost like in our, as we live in this world, we are primarily material, which can also be but also be referred to as lowly. Let's say, in a sense. So the tzedakah is there to transform our nature, subjugate it, but reverse it.
Avodat hatzedakah.
Avodat tzedakah. Okay, good. That's good.
When it's actually labor, right?
Labor, right? And the labor itself. So the labor itself not only defeats it in a small sense, but like you said, it changes the nature, so that even if now it looks like I'm doing this and it's completely outside of my nature, right? It's outside of any habit that I have. Later on, it actually becomes the opposite. It's going to be
no.
No?
So okay, says you give tzedakah, right? Now, if it's something that's easy and it's natural, right? Then it's called ma'aseh tzedakah,
right?
And therefore, when all it results in is the light that when you pray, you're better able to be at union with God, and it creates a shalom. But that's not a lasting thing,
right?
Whereas when someone actually exerts themselves in tzedakah, when it's an actual avodah, where he's actually changing something about who he is and how he is,
Right.
then it becomes something that is more permanent within him than simply the ma'aseh hatzedakah.
Okay. Yeah. So I was misspeaking, but I was miscommunicating. But yeah, that's what I was.
That's what you were trying to say. Okay. וזהו שכתוב השקט ובטח עד עולם. And that's why it says quietness and surety forever, right? Hashket hu milashon shoket al shmarav, right? So he's explaining this language of quietness. It's related to the root of the verb in the phrase, he rests shoket on his dregs. Jeremiah 48:11. The hainu shahashmarim. So dregs. We're talking about the dregs of of wine, right? So like the stuff that goes to the bottom of the bottle. Hashmarim nifradim legamre min hayayin v'noflim lamata legamre, right? So that's what silence is. It's that settling of the shmarim, right, all the way to the bottom, so that it doesn't become part of it again, right? So the wine which is above is wholly pure and clear. Right? Similarly, when it's a labor of charity, hashmarim, right? The dregs, as it were, hen bechinat ta'arovet ra shebenafsho, right? That is the mixing of evil and good in a person's self. Nivrar v'nivrat nifrad b'ma'at ma'at, right? It's slowly it falls ad shenofel lamata lemikoro v'shorsho, that it rests in where it actually comes from, which is below. Right? Like we say in the what you call it, tashlich, right? When we say tashlich on Rosh Hashanah, right? God will throw into the sea, the depths of the sea, all of their sins.
Yeah. So I think, isn't that one of the 13 attributes of mercy?
Well, it's not one of the. It is. So there is a correspondence between what we say in Tashlich with the 13 principles. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me get some water. I will be right back.
Okay. Sounds good. This was a long one. Long chapter. Let me see. There's discussions about cows in the comments. That's interesting.
Summer has finally made it to Los Angeles.
It's hot?
Very.
Yeah. I think all over. This one looks long too. I don't know if I can make it.
So we can leave it until next week.
So you're saying look at clip what you have said at the stream.
Yeah, it was really good. It was on PBK's stream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Yoav's been coming on PBK's stream, and he's come on a few streams.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard of him.
He lives in Tel Aviv. He is, I think he may be older than me. Um, and uh, yeah, when he speaks, he says very interesting things, and he's actually been very kind. He's been donating 30 shekels every time he does. He came on my channel and donated 30 shekels, and he donated 30 shekels. Whatchamacallit, to Paul Vanderklay, and somebody's like, there you go, your 30 pieces of silver. when he first did that, I wasn't sure if it was a joke, like somebody was donating 30 shekels, like if it wasn't an actual like real human being or not.
Mm-hmm.
But no, he lives in Tel Aviv. He's a yeah, he joined the Discord, but I don't think he Discords very much. But he's a very interesting guy whenever he talks.
Yeah. I'll look it up. I haven't listened to it.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Although, hopefully I did a good job explaining it.
I've explained the color. I mean, it was interesting. It's an interesting thing to think about, I mean, like, anything that talks about that balance between, and we talk about good and evil, or choosing life, right? Choose life, which kind of is interesting to think about in that context. Because if we think that the color white is life and the color black, if there is R2, like what is the purpose of the red? Is the purpose of the red to move towards the white? Is that like I don't know if it's
we were kind of talking about not being black and white and not splitting and like having room for the gray, and that's part of what he was like. Well, if it's not even just black and white, there's also the red.
The red, yeah.
So I found that, I mean, I forget who it was. Somebody asked me what I thought about it, and it's like, well, I have to chew on it, but I like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
we've had a lot of comments this today. I wouldn't know about the Quran. Sorry. I don't know who Joe Morris is, and I'm not quite sure I understand the stuff he's talking about. Like the base of Hermes? No clue. And I have no idea what any of this has to do with the Bama or Bamot or cows going moo. So, ich weiß nicht. In the biblical text, it used to mean the backs of one's enemies. I'm not sure what he's saying. Don says, I feel a bit awkward being the only person with a star after my name. It's all CW's fault. Yeah, so CW gifted a bunch of memberships to my channel. And like, there's no membership content whatsoever. And I keep on telling people, don't give money to YouTube, give money to Fountain of Comfort.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't listen to me. So there we go.
I didn't even know you have a membership thing.
Apparently now I do. Yeah, I mean, I turned it on in case people wanted to use it. I told them not to, because I told them I would prefer you give the money to Fountain of Comfort, but nobody listens to me anyway. And so basically I'm using reverse psychology on them. I'm like, no, don't
do it.
Don't do it. So there's a way they can give me money where where I prefer, and there's a way you have two choices. You can give me money the way I prefer or the way I don't like.
Maybe you should start bashing Fountain of Comfort.
Oh yeah. If I start bashing Fountain of Comfort, then lots of people might give it lots of money. Yeah, I might end up getting
$1 million in drug money.
Yeah. Okay, these are unrelated question. Unrelated. Um what's a good elucidation of Rashi? Like if I want to learn more about Rashi.
So there are
Obviously the Sichot, the Likutei Rashi, or however the
Likutei Sichot on, yeah. So no, but so there are literally hundreds of commentaries on Rashi,
this is a problem for
and
me.
and you might, in a very real sense, say that the Ramban, Nachmanides, his commentary on the Torah is actually a commentary on Rashi on the Torah.
Right.
So there's always that. But the two commentaries on Rashi, the two real, so most of the commentaries on Rashi are actually commentaries on either the Maharal Miprag, and his commentary on Rashi is called Gur Aryeh, right?
Okay.
Which means it means the lion's cub, right? And Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, I think his name is, Ra'em, and he wrote a commentary on Rashi. Part of the reason a lot of places have the Siftei Chachamim printed, so what the Siftei, you have to be careful with the Siftei Chachamim, because what Siftei Chachamim is there was a very nice Jew who was a printer, and as a printer, he also read a lot. And what he did was he gathered commentaries on various things, and he printed them from various places he had read, and he printed them as Siftei Chachamim, which literally means the from the lips of the wise ones. Now, he himself was not some great rabbi. There's definitely places where people will say he misunderstood what he was quoting. And so you have to be careful. The Siftei Chachamim was not some great rabbinic authority, but certainly there's a lot of interesting things. And so when you're looking at Rashi, oftentimes when you're trying to get an elucidation of Rashi, Siftei Chachamim actually works really well. Honestly, probably your best bet is actually the Rashi translation to English by ArtScroll is probably one of the best things you could look at. But if you want to study Rashi with a commentary, I would probably say the Gur Aryeh Maharal Miprag, or there are people who have made there are all sorts of anthologies as well, even anthologies of the Maharal and stuff. But if you're looking for a commentary on Rashi on Chumash, I would say you probably want to be looking at Siftei Chachamim or the Maharal. Obviously, you could do Nachmanides, but Nachmanides is he's his own thing, right?
Yeah.
And while his commentary on the Torah was actually written as a commentary on Rashi, which is kind of funny.
That's how prominent Rashi.
Yeah.
So I'm at the point where I don't know what to. The point where I'm trying to figure out.
Are you having difficulty understanding Rashi, or?
Am I having difficulty understanding Rashi? So I was asking a friend. I'll answer with a story. I was asking a friend So I'm looking at different commentaries now. I was asking a friend, what should I look at? So he was saying, so he told me a story. So he told me a story about him asking his rabbi, what should he learn? And then his rabbi said, I can't remember in Yiddish he said it, but he said, if you got it with Rashi, you're good.
Right.
so meaning it's gonna take you a long time to even understand and really get it with Rashi. So if you've got it with Rashi, you're good. But so obviously, as someone that wants to read and read, so this is what I'm trying to figure out of like in terms of what do I want to really get into, not be too chaotic or just like like take it like like the approach, because even like should I be a universalist when it comes to commentaries, or should I really try to
No, I mean, Chumash Rashi is essential.
Mhm.
Like, to some extent, any other commentary on Chumash is a commentary on Rashi, because Rashi tends to be elucidating what was basic Jewish tradition, right? So he's actually not really. I mean, it's not like, and he was made, like, he wrote it in order to give a basic understanding, right? That's why, like, a child starts with Chumash Rashi,
Yeah.
right? So that's funny. Does anything good come from the Rhineland? Well, yeah, Rashi apparently. I mean, when I think of worms, I think of Rashi, not that other guy. The I mean, you're golden if you understand Rashi. If you're having trouble understanding Rashi, which in certain places it can be difficult. Frankly, it might be good to have a chavruta on Rashi.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I don't know. I don't know if I don't or do understand it. It's just that I don't. It's something
you're
that
not sure if you're getting it.
well, no, it's something that I need to really get into. Like, I mean, how do I do, like, how do I learn it? Like, I mean, I learn it, and I learned it partly, let's say, kind of like with the daily study, so I can listen to it, Rabbi Gordon,
Okay.
the classic way, right? But and in and I get it from other sources, right? So different people will reference Rashi, but I don't study Rashi specifically, really, like every single thing, which is something that maybe I should do. So that's
I'll at Chatotayim Ani Mazkir Hayom. I had a chavruta. It took us a year to get through Bereshit Chumash Rashi.
Mm-hmm.
We never.
Exactly. So when you go into something, you go into something. That's the thing. Like, so when you ask me, do you understand Rashi? It was like, how much did I go into it? Like, I mean, I can maybe understand it, but it's like,
Look, I mean, the halacha is you're supposed to do Shnaim Mikra V'chad Targum,
mm-hmm.
right? Which a lot of people do Shnaim Mikra and third time with Rashi as the Targum, as the Pirush, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you can keep up with the Parshiot and go through a year of actually, like, even just reading the Rashis, you're like, I mean, that's a monumental task, and it's a good task, and it's a great thing to do. Now, what Heilige Yidden like Yosef do is like he does 1 year Shnaim Mikra and Rashi, and then the next year he'll do Ramban, and then next year he'll do Orach Chaim. And I don't know how often he does Chazara, but like he'll do different commentaries, right? Frankly, I mean, a Jewish home should have a Mikraot Gedolot in there, and if you're going through
Yeah.
the Mikraot Gedolot, I mean,
I looked at it. I think it'll be too tough for me to go through the Mikot like Dolot. Like I need it's even as someone that has the Hebrew.
it's too
like
hard to understand what they're talking about.
It's it'll take too long, too hard to understand. So I think it's worth it for me just to take one and
Oh yeah, I mean,
then break it down.
Yeah, no, trying to do the entire Mikraot Gedolot. No.
So just having that, I guess it's the source. Yeah, I mean that's the source, and go through the different commentaries.
And frankly, I mean, look, part of it also becomes you're reading the Torah for a portion, and it becomes interesting. Like you're like, hey, what's it talking about here?
Mm-hmm.
And then you see, okay, Rashi says this, and like, oh, well, let's see who else says something here. Like sometimes, it's a little more abstract than that.
Yeah.
Haphazard than that. Yeah, I have no idea what Joe Morris is saying, honestly.
Responsa.
Yeah, responsa has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about. So, I don't know. Cool?
Yeah.
Should we end it here?
We could.
We will end it here.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jake.
Rashi's responsa. I don't think we have Rashi's responsa.